Hello there, and welcome to the Kirk Minahan Wrap Up Show for May 5th, 2021. Today's show was Dr. Dan. It was a little different than other shows. I like this kind of switching it up for Wednesday. There was an in-studio guest. It was Kirk's youngest brother, Ryan Minahan, and they discussed a very traumatizing thing that happened to them in the past. I thought going into this, when I first saw the tweet, I thought it was going to be a joke. I thought they were going to be talking about, how, Adam shit his pants or something one Thanksgiving or something like that. And they could never eat. That's why Kirk doesn't eat turkey on Thanksgiving or something.
He eats pasta, right?
But it was very, very real. It seems to be not something that only happened to the Minahans. It seems to have happened to thousands of children across Massachusetts. It's very, very scary. So I'm joined today, as always, on Wednesdays by Tim and Canton. Tim, how you doing?
Hey, buddy. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
Saw you on Saturday at the event. Kirk wouldn't have attended if he was paid $1 billion.
That's right. People don't understand that there was zero chance Kirk was ever going to show up to that.
Still a good time, in my opinion.
It was a good time. It was a good time. But what do you think Kirk would have, if he had to choose, go to the Kowloon for the entire 4 hours and socialize and be Mr. Positive, or sit back down in Dr. Dan's chair?
Dr. Dan's chair, no doubt.
You think so?
Yep.
I think it's a coin flip.
No,
I think
Dr. Dan. That's a great question. I say Dr. Dan.
You say Dr. Dan? Well,
yep, 100%.
So let's just jump right into it. So Kirk was telling a story from when he was 6. Not apparently, there was this dentist named Dr. Daniel who would take children and tie them up in a dentist chair and then pretty much torture them to the point of many of his patients never going to receive dental work ever again, traumatizing people. I know Kirk was kind of he didn't want to say it was on the same level as someone who was, molested, or, someone who was in like the Catholic Church when all that jazz was going on. But I do think I think it's very difficult to kind of point to put trauma against trauma. It does sound like Kirk was very traumatized by this.
Absolutely. It was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said I can see why. I mean, from what he described, how his arms would be tied down to the chair so he couldn't move. His jaw would be, wrenched open to the point of where he's crying. I think at one point he mentioned he remembers tears rolling down his face. Being told, having this man put his hand over your mouth and telling you to shut up, you're just going to make it worse, and then punishing the children if they're loud for making them sit, so he makes them sit there for hours and hours. Jesus Christ, this is fucking Diana and Natalie shit. This is some fucked up stuff going on.
Way to weave that in, Justin. Nice job.
Over in Dr. Dan's office. I don't know what your thoughts were. I wasn't obviously alive in the 80s. I've had nothing but positive experiences with dentists, orthopedics, and stuff like that. So
orthodontist.
Was this common, Tim?
I would say, first, I just wanted to say I get what Kirk is saying about the trauma. And, he said he suffered trauma, but it wasn't the same as somebody who's been molested, who's been raped, who's been attacked. He absolutely suffered very, very severe trauma. There was physical abuse, emotional abuse. There was psychological abuse. And frankly, there was certain forms of torture. 100% he suffered that, and totally understand where he's coming from. And it made me sad to think a little kid having to go through that. And I can picture it because was it common practice back in the 70s and 80s? I would say that it's probably more common than you'd think. Not that everybody did that. I think that was definitely an extreme case, but I know that the dentist that my dad used to take us to, like Kirk, it was where he grew up. And so he would take us from our house, drive half an hour and go to the dentist. And that dentist didn't use Novocaine, but that was on my dad. and my mother, because they knew, but we still had to go there.
Yep.
And we hated it. You know, when you're little, you remember, Justin, your teeth coming in, they're pushing the little teeth out, the baby teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that can go until you're 8, 9 years old. I forget what age, but it can go to the point where you have collective memory about it. And I'm with you. After that, I didn't go to the dentist for a long time. Then I went to a guy who was okay. And then the dentist I went to after that is somebody I still see today. And I freaking love the guy. He's awesome. He does a great job. He even remarked something I had done like the year prior was something that hadn't been taught in 20 years. So even my in-between dentist was a hack. But I finally found someone who was just, he's amazing. He's fixed me many times over, and I get a mush mouth of teeth. So that experience that Kirk went through is very troubling. And, you know, he sent out a tweet earlier about Friday might be a Survivors Network discussion.
Yes, I saw
but
that.
He's 100% right. That guy was a freaking animal.
Monster.
He's not, he wasn't, it wasn't Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun. It was Dr. Mengele, who was the angel of death, and Nurse Ratched combined.
Yeah. I was thinking of Nurse Ratched the entire time.
Right?
When they were talking about that. I just think I can only imagine being, you know, you're 6, you know, you think about like things that happen when you're 6 or 7 that you don't understand. And then you think back and you go, oh, so that was what was really happening at the time. I'm not even talking about like traumatic things, but when Kirk told the story that he would just be held down without any anesthetics, without anything, and with
pushed down
with his hand, he would rip out his baby teeth.
Yep.
What the fuck? What kind of dentistry is that?
It's really it's medieval. It's medieval. Putting the contraptions in the mouth, make it like Ryan said, making you sit there and like because Ryan told how he had a retractor in his mouth, and Kirk was saying he counted the minutes and it was well over an hour. Just the pain and the suffering that a little kid has to go through. And I know exactly what he's talking about. I don't know if your parents are this way, but there was definitely a level of acceptance of people in professions that they knew what was best. Nobody questioned the doctor. Nobody questioned the dentist. Nobody questioned anybody that was either in a certain profession or a certain position of power. They were just not questioned. They were taken on faith. So, hey, I do it with my kids. They complain about something. Oh, I hate going there. Yeah. And I just tell them, you know, pipe down. You're going no matter what. But from what Kirk had said, they were traumatized. And my biggest question is, how did he find the podcast where it was played? I think he said it like popped into the charts for a little bit. Oh, is that where? And he said the guy who was talking about his experience undersold what he actually went through. And Ryan was there to corroborate everything. And it sounds like, I don't know if you just saw the tweets before jumping on. He said he's getting emails and DMs Hundreds from other people. Yeah. This guy was a freaking butcher.
I mean, Jesus Christ. It just sounds, I mean, like, I don't think Kirk wanted to come out and say this because of the notion of what, you know, PTSD is. And, you know, when you think of PTSD, most of the time you think of people who have served, who have seen like, you know, battles and have things going up. But this is textbook PTSD.
Right. It's a traumatic incident. Right.
Yes, right. It is very, very much so a traumatic incident.
And not only that, think about this. A lot of people get PTSD from a single incident. Not get it, but a lot of people suffer from it. And it's, man, I feel so awful for anybody that's got PTSD to have to live with that. And, and this was something that he knew was going to happen every time they had to go. Just think of what that must be like to somebody knowing this is what's going to happen as soon as you walk in there. And it's never going to get better.
Well,
never, I mean, until they stop going to him.
He said even when he was like he had like a toothache or something with his wife, and his wife was like, why don't you just go see the dentist? And he was like, I know, but like, I can't. I mean, this is it's textbook PTSD. I mean, my heart breaks for him.
It's like somebody who's afraid of flying and then telling them, oh, don't be afraid. It's safe. Well, that doesn't alleviate anybody's fears or their trauma. Yeah, it's just lip service. You can't tell someone not to feel a certain way.
It's like someone who was afraid of flying because every single time they flew, the pilot would go upside down and almost crash into a mountain.
Right? And you say, what's the
big
deal?
And then, 20 years later, everyone's like, oh yeah, I mean, flying's safe. I mean, because I didn't have that experience. It truthfully broke my heart. I 100% believe Kirk too when he said that if he found out someone was doing that to Harry or to Kate, that he's like, I would just go in and kill them. I would just, go in and, they'd be dead.
Yeah. There's have you heard the term helicopter parents?
I have.
You must have heard that, right? So that's not helicopter parenting when you question what's going on with your child in a locked room, especially where he would say, nobody's allowed in here. Nobody, just the kids. And Steve, Steve had some good points into the psyche of this guy.
Where was the tooth fairy? Oh, okay. I thought that was a good point, Steve, man.
But Steve talking about, what he did in retirement, he probably did adopt some dogs and abuse them. And people like that don't just stop. That takes a certain sort of evil to perpetuate that activity year after year after year after all these. It's what happened in the Catholic Church, and it's what happened with priests, where people knew, people absolutely knew. Yep, but people also knew, Justin, and they turned a blind eye.
Yep.
And they just didn't want to accept it. And then these people, they don't stop. It's in their DNA. They can't stop themselves. What shocks me the most is this was happening in the 80s, and there's probably more oversight today, especially. There's probably more oversight of people giving haircuts and making sure their license is up to date than there is oversight about what happens in dental practices.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough listening. I expected
because you can imagine it, right? We've all been to the dentist.
Oh yeah,
right.
I mean, I've had some instances of some serious mouth pain, and there truly is nothing worse than when you have like a sore on the inside of your cheek or something and it rubs up against you every single time you talk. But I mean, I've never had anything. I mean, I've had bad experiences with a dentist, but nothing on that level. Like normal bad experiences. Like, oh shit, I gotta get a cap put in today or something.
Root canal.
Of that sort. But Jesus Christ, I can only imagine. I mean, Kirk was describing about how he'd get the thing in the mail 2 weeks earlier that would say, "Hey, you have an appointment ready," and he was scared shitless of it. I can definitely see how this triggered his anxiety and I could definitely see it being part of the reason why he suffers from such severe anxiety to this day. I mean, Jesus Christ. And the thing is was this I know I've listened to KMS since the beginning. He's never mentioned this once. He's never even hinted at it. Did he ever hint at this ever before?
He has said, from what I remember, he has said how much he hates going to the dentist. He gets a sense of claustrophobia, but he's never, and he said it today, he's never talked about his actual experience. And he has, I think he did mention once before that he hated the feeling where the dentist would put the chair all the way back, but he never really got into, obviously not like today.
He never said yeah, that's Dr. Dan. That's a story for another day.
Not that, I shouldn't say it's like that. Not that I recall. Just that he hated the dentist. There was a sense of claustrophobia he got from going to, and he also has mentioned in the past, he didn't like the feeling of, it's a dentist, so they got to do it, but he didn't like the feeling of someone's hands in his mouth. And you think, for an average person, well, it's the dentist. What's the big deal? Then you hear the freaking story.
Oh, Jesus
It explains a lot, And I thought Kirk made an awesome point. How many people that had gone to this person and had since suffered from poor dental, I don't want to say hygiene, but poor dental
upkeep or,
yes, poor dental state. And it wasn't because they didn't brush their teeth or anything. It was because they wouldn't go like Kirk. They wouldn't go to the dentist for something you and I wouldn't think twice about because they were petrified. And I do not blame them one bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine thinking, oh, my tooth is sore, I might have a cavity. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, if I go in there,
I'm going to get tortured.
I get tied down and he rips the tooth out with his bare hands.
And a little kid, just a little kid who was taught to respect your elders, don't talk back, follows all the rules. And then this freaking psycho tortures him for over an hour and then comes out into the waiting room and says, way to go, champ. Good job. That is a predator right there. That is a
100%.
characteristic of a predator, right?
Yeah, he was getting off like
Oh,
from the
yeah.
violence that he
In
was
some way, shape, or
doing on
form,
these
he absolutely
children.
was getting pleasure from that. And
Yes.
let's not forget his co-conspirator, who,
Yes.
nowadays, thank God, there are whistleblower laws and there is much more protection for people who do speak up. But
Hmm.
it takes a certain sort of someone to not only let that happen, but to participate, smacking the kids
Oh,
on the
Jesus
ass,
Christ.
right? I mean, she was
Yeah.
fully culpable too.
I
So
mean,
it's one
I
thing to
could have.
say, oh, I don't want to lose my job, blah, 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 whatever the circumstances might be. But I can just picture her grinning while this is going on.
It doesn't matter if I start a new job and then the first thing I'm doing is like, especially in a industry where you're like quote unquote helping people. In
Yeah.
dentistry,
Yeah.
you're making people's lives
It's
better.
a
You're
good point.
fixing their teeth,
Yeah.
and then you're like torturing children. I would get the fuck out of there before the fucking shift was over.
But
Sounds just
again, it
both of
takes
them.
takes a certain someone. I can't wait to see the follow on from this. Like, did he retire, or was he kind of forced to retire because things were coming to the fore at some point? There's I'm sure there's a backstory there, right?
Yeah, I mean, this just seems primed for like a Netflix documentary or like an entire podcast series on him. Really, it does. I could definitely see it being like a 2 hour special or something like this because I mean, it just sounded fucking insane. And I mean, that's only from Kirk's experience. Who knows what other kids went through, whether or not that I mean,
Well, sounds like
would you?
everybody did.
Yes, but would like I could imagine something worse happening. Like, would it surprise you if these kids ended up being sexually abused in some way?
No, no,
I
wouldn't be
mean,
at all. They suffered massive trauma. No, wouldn't surprise me at all. I bet there's a bunch of people who've become addicted to something, who have struggled through life. It is
mhm.
a child being tortured and abused. It just unfortunately can set a pathway for the rest of their life.
Oh, it breaks my
And you
heart.
can't minimize it and say, oh, it's just a dentist. They were literally being tortured. Do you recall last couple of years there was I'm kind of giggling because it wasn't the first instance, but there was a dentist, an unlicensed person practicing dentistry in like Framingham. Do you remember that? It was in the news.
I remember a man. I don't think it was in Massachusetts. I believe it was in Florida. It was
You
like a
might have
young
been, yeah,
20-year-old. It was a young
practicing,
20-year-old,
right?
and I believe he was an African American man, and he was claiming to be an OBGYN doctor.
Oh, that's
And
different. Okay, well,
okay, well,
I I do know there was a dentist. You know what was in Mass? The Mass was the person in Framingham given the the collagen and the Botox injections with no,
oh, okay.
like, and it was cement. It was basically liquid
Oh,
cement.
what the
But
fuck?
there was someone practicing dentistry that was unlicensed, had a patient role, had a roster of patients. I gotta say, everything I read about that, people didn't come forward complaining really.
Yeah.
They weren't saying the guy was torturing me. He was just a guy who was totally into dentistry and took it upon himself, like that character in the Christmas movie, Harvey, who wants to be the dentist.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
the guy took it upon
Yeah, with
himself and
Rudolph.
started
Yeah.
practicing. But there were complaints, but it was more about him not having a license, not about the terrible work he did or that he tortured anybody.
Yeah. No, I mean, Jesus, like I said,
Ryan
I
made a
think it's
good
good
point
that.
too, Justin, about the pain. How
Mhm.
I get, sometimes when you're little, they would do that, right? Doctor or the nurse would pinch your arm to distract you while the shot's going in, but it's a pinch, right? And Ryan had a great point. This guy was so fucking sadistic that he would squeeze their hand to the point where it hurt as bad. The shot hurt just as bad or less than the hand actually being squeezed.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
I
a
mean, it was
sadist.
fucking insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's truly. I mean, this man needs to. I mean, I don't know if he can still. I don't know when he stopped practicing. It looks like if you look online, there's still like some uh, places where he worked at are still open, but it's Jesus Christ. I mean,
Well, there is
what?
already, true to the Miniverse, there's already a Dr. Art Daniels DDS Twitter account.
Yeah. Oh
already
yeah. I got
created.
followed by that
Yeah, that
early
didn't
this
take long
morning.
at all. But this is, like Kirk said, this is something that could snowball into something bigger,
Yeah. I mean, this is
a
it was
lot bigger.
fucked. It was fucked. That's the only word really to describe it. I know Kirk was making jokes. He's like, oh, 5-star review, Patty Min. I think she was just going along with it. I bet you everyone in that neighborhood went to go see Dr. Dan, and since he didn't treat any adults, he only treated children. All the adults were probably like, Kirk doesn't like going to the dentist
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he doesn't like getting his teeth touched or anything like that.
That's
And
another level of depravity here. Is he was a pediatric dentist,
yeah,
so he
yeah, because
chose a profession and then chose a segment or a niche, as KB would say, niche in that profession. So he's a fucking predator. He went
yeah,
for kids.
no,
And
I mean
I
it
hope
was yeah,
something happens to this asshole. I do.
good. I
Because
mean
just think of
something
all the
should.
other little kids that got hurt.
I texted my parents this morning when I was
Your
listening to
lovely
it. I was like,
parents who
"Thank
I
you."
met Saturday night.
That's right.
Very nice
Um,
people.
whom I said, "Thank you so much for not taking me to Doctor Dan," and they had no idea what I was
They
talking
had no
about.
clue, right? They're
And
still
but I
wondering
was
what the
just
hell
like,
went on Saturday night.
yeah, I was just like, Jesus Christ. I mean, that's some fucked up shit. And the fact that if Adam knew about it, I want to know, did Kirk go to he never said when he stopped going to him. Did he stop going to him when he turned 18?
Yeah, it was a few. I thought he had mentioned. I listen again, but I thought he had mentioned it was for a few years, right? He went there for a few years.
Well, because if Adam remembers him,
You mean
Ryan,
Ryan, who's 10 years younger?
yes, who's 10 years younger, and Kirk
Yeah,
was talking about when he was 6. I mean,
yeah.
that's got to be, oh, Jesus Christ. So
And how
anyway,
about how about Peter Minahan, his dad? That is 1,000% what my dad would have said, and it's probably what I would have said too.
oh,
Is
I
he was
yeah,
there when we needed him? Well, still remember that day he shot. I heard that and I thought, oh man, I do that, and I know my father would have said the same thing.
yeah,
That
I heard
one
my father and
instance,
my grandfather in that too. Just like,
right?
oh yeah, but that one time
That
he
one
came
time
through
he
for us.
stepped up. Yeah, the rest of the time he's torturing you, but that one time, but like they said, that was their dad's only exposure to this. The guy was working all the time. He wasn't
Yeah,
home all the time. He was traveling, and that was his only exposure. And to him, guy hit it out of the park
yeah.
that one
It
time.
was God. Yeah, it's just completely fucked. There were a couple other things brought up on today's show that I thought would be interesting just to talk a couple minutes on. Number one, Kirk asked how Madawaska is coming along. It's coming.
Do you
I'm
have a
making some
status
phone calls.
report?
I do have a status report. I've been making some phone calls. I've been trying to find a venue. Um, I don't think it's going to be different. I'm going to say it's going to be different than last year, but I'm still going to make sure it's going to be a very inclusive, very fun event. Hopefully we will figure out and we'll get the shirt or the ticket squared away soon. Hopefully those are on sale sometime next week.
So, do you have
Uh,
more? So, two questions for you, Justin. You planning anything special or a little bit different from what it was last year or last time, or is it going to be pretty much the same as far as what the events will be? Obviously, no ice fishing. And then, secondly, do you know what the details are on the tickets? Do you buy a shirt now, and is it at $100? And if you buy a shirt,
I have
you get a
see.
ticket.
I'm still trying to figure out because I'm pretty much trying to organize the entire thing, but the only one thing I can't do is I can't just be like tickets are $50 or tickets are
Mhm.
$200. So we're still I think that's mostly up to Kirk. So hopefully, like I said, by sometime
Uh,
next week, ticket goes on sale.
yeah, I'm sorry. I meant more of how you get a ticket. So, is it you buy a T-shirt and the ticket
Yeah,
comes with it?
yeah. So
That's an old Howie Cott trick right there.
oh yeah, well,
Because
because
you can't get taxed on clothing, and so Howie would sell his book. But what he'd do is, if you bought a Howie Cott T-shirt, you
you
got
got
a
a book
free
for
book.
free.
Yes,
Yeah.
so you didn't get taxed. I like that. It's ingenious. That's Steve pulling
Oh
from the
well,
past.
Steve came up with that idea, but
I
I think
like
that's
it.
what it's going to be. It's going to be more expensive t-shirt where, you you just wear it to the event, get in and you'll be able to go in. So I am trying to plan like certain events because I've kind of broken it up into 4 different segments. There's Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and Saturday night, with Saturday night being the Kirk Minahan show.
The show.
I'm trying to figure out something to do Saturday morning. I think the return. I don't know if you heard this, but the Dexter Hot Dog Festival is not happening this year. For the second year in a row, sadly. So perhaps we might have the Madawaska Hot Dog Festival.
Ooh, would they be red snappers?
Oh, Tim, am I going to half-ass this?
Disgusting, by the way. Snappers. Sorry, Gig. Sorry, Tony. Sorry, Lauren, TJ. But fucking things are gross.
But there might be a hot dog eating contest. I'm going to be getting in contact with Big Rick. I'm very excited. It's going to take place mostly outside. The only thing I pray to God that it's nice weather. I mean, because if it's because I don't know, Tim, where like you
today?
Are, it's shit weather. I mean, I just pray to God that Saturday is good weather and allows us to be outdoors and have some fun. But will there be
a male only wet t-shirt contest?
Well, first of all, I think that would be very discriminatory, and I don't think Kirk or Barstool is trying to face any sort of class action lawsuit. They've been going through a lot of Kirk, especially, has been threatened or has been going through a lot of lawsuits lately.
Your friend Julie DeCaro, Maya Curtatone,
Diana, it's all fucking. The whole thing is just insane. So yeah,
soon to be Dr. Art Daniels. By the way, doesn't that sound like a? Sorry, go ahead.
The Kirk Minahan show does not discriminate based on age, race, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, height, weight, ethnicity, or anything like that. So
what about
that's
fat
going to be a no
chests?
to the male only wet t-shirt contest.
So fat hairy chests are okay?
Of course.
Okay. And doesn't Dr. Art Daniels sound like the ultimate soap opera doctor name?
He sounds like Dr. He sounds like a fucking comic book villain or something.
Yeah, Dr. Art
the Tooth Man, they were calling him.
Dr. Dan. He called himself.
Oh,
remember that guy was saying, because Kirk was saying we never called him that, and I think he and Ryan both said they never heard him refer to himself as that. But that guy who was on the podcast was saying that's how he referred to himself. Again, typical Predator move. Call me the Tooth Man. When you got to give yourself your own nickname.
Oh, he knew what he was doing, and he knew he would get away with it too.
Yeah, you can't give yourself your own nickname. Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
No. So
that's Madawaska.
Yep. So that's Madawaska. The last thing I wanted to touch about from today's episode was Carabas was brought up a couple times on the show, and they were talking about how what's Friday's show going to be like. Is this going to? Because Kirk said he had the. He thought it was going to snowball into something bigger with, more people kind of reaching out to him saying, hey, this
seems like it is.
Hey, and it seems like it is. And so he's like, I wonder what Jared's reaction is going to be to that. And he said, I don't know. Jared's probably going to be like, oh, I don't know. It's stupid. Yeah. Baseball, which I don't think Jared does a lot. But my only thought is that as someone who's been on the receiving end of Kirk, I remember one time Kirk said, Justin's in charge of the YouTube because the YouTube sucks. Justin sucks. And it was very, that's motivating for me, obviously. But in that moment, Kirk had a very low perception of me. And now it's probably like an inch higher than that. But it was very low. So it sounded, I don't know if Kirk is necessarily not necessarily getting tired or angry with Jared, but just kind of being like, oh, he, maybe he's not seeing effort put into the show. I don't know. It just sounded strange to me when Kirk was like, yeah, Jared was probably just going to mope and be, I'm sad.
Well, did he say he was disappointed, or he at least sounded disappointed that Jared wasn't part of the team going forward? Kirk will tell you his number one thing, loyalty. And he's loyal to Jared. He wanted him on the team. Even though Jared didn't want to be there as soon as he was on the team, he didn't want him to leave. And so it sounds like he's disappointed. I don't know. I'm not putting words in his mouth, but that's what it sounds like. And But that could make tomorrow I think it'll make it very, very interesting because didn't they have the games today?
Yes, so all the games were played today.
Yeah.
We're not going to. I find it very, very difficult that everyone at Barstool is going to be able to keep their mouth shut for an entire month. I mean, that just
Yeah,
seems a
right.
crime. Like someone's.
Right.
I'm not even. I don't even want to know any of the outcomes because when it eventually comes out, I don't even want to be in the conversation of who leaked this information. I don't want Steve to text me and say, damn, lost in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then it somehow leaks out there, and then I get caught. So I don't want to know any of this. I want to be just like the Minute fans.
As much as it would suck to know beforehand, I also don't think many people would not watch if they already knew the outcome. Because if you like the dozen trivia, you're gonna watch it. If you like Kirk, you're gonna watch it anyway. Like if I heard Kirk got knocked out first round, I'm still watching. I don't think it impacts it that much that they're going to lose viewership, but it would suck. It takes something away from it.
I think that people who are fans of not necessarily the Kirk Minahan show, but the dozen trivia would kind of ruin that for them.
Yeah, I think they'll still watch it, but it does take away from it for sure. And it's I think Friday is going to be interesting with Jared because this Dr. Death here could overtake the whole show. But then again, Jared might have an interesting dentist story. You never know with Jared. That's what I like about him.
Perhaps.
He comes out with these beauties just because Kirk is talking about a subject and go, oh yeah. And he's got something to relate to it. So, or he could be totally fascinated by Kirk's story, or he could just be like, whatever, like a K Marco response. But I think it'll be interesting, Friday.
I love Kirk on. I mean, I love Jared on the show.
I do too. He's become one of my favorites. Yep.
Fridays are currently my favorite day for the Kirk Minahan show.
Don't let B. Michael Gary hear that.
Oh, I mean, Blind Mike knows I love him. Blind Mike knows I die for him. But I mean, the Friday shows are, unlike anything we've seen before. I think Jared's a great personality to have on the show, and I'm looking forward to what he's going to bring to the table this week. But that pretty much does it for today's episode. I liked it. We still got I believe it was like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was just like compelling. It was like, what the fuck? The entire time I just kept thinking to myself, what the fuck? So I'll definitely be interested to see where this goes, if it turns into like a longer term storyline or anything like that. But it is what it is. I don't know, Tim, do you got anything else to say about today's show?
And like just same as you. It was kind of out of nowhere. It revealed a lot. It made me very, very sad to think little kids were going through this.
Of course.
Which is just it's disgusting on so many levels. And looking forward to Friday. So don't forget, brush your teeth.
Awesome. Well, Tim, I will talk to you soon. I will talk to everyone tomorrow over on the Case YouTube with Harrison for the Case Wrap Up. And hope everyone has a good day, and I'll talk to you